you have in your packet the calendar for next year too. It's same as usual. You'll see we have the CIP meeting coming up on February 7th.
What did we just get sent? Has anybody looked at the CIP amendments?
Yeah.
How much was it?
It's a gazillion.
Has anybody looked at it yet?
A lot of money.
Look forward to your.
They stayed within the $340 million a year, so we didn't increase the total amount that we got over.
1.7.
Can you say that again, Bob?
For schools.
1.762.
Yeah, but he's including everything that's already in there, so.
Yeah, wasn't that an unusual amount of money
Well,
this time of year?
it's a little, no, it's not more money. Remember, this is the same CIP, it's 17 to 22. And he added a few things, but the total, when you think the whole 6 years, including everything that was done last year, is 1.7.
Oh, so that is
It's a Patrick
part of the
number.
budget that we'll finally adopt in May.
Yeah, all you're
What
gonna
they just
approve is,
sent out.
all you're gonna approve is amendments.
So that's what that was.
Yeah, the
I was thinking
1.73
of
is
that
the,
as sort of a supplemental, but it wasn't, it was
No.
just part of the.
the 1.73 billion is not
I thought
amendments.
that was, number
This
was.
is total.
That's
So
total.
it's reallocation in some parts.
And it's probably, I haven't read the details, but I'm sure it's a few
Okay,
more
I
parts.
misread that.
I remember the school system, like, in their, in the superintendent's request, asked for actually very little more. Right.
But some of that is based on state money too, right?
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
just in
he's
there.
assuming
Right.
some state money.
Ms. Lowry.
Okay, all right. In February, you'll notice we do have the recess the week of the 20th of the holiday. In March, full sessions. April, the spring break is April 10th. The schools are out that week until a week. Our operating budget hearings will be before that then.
So,
The operating budgets, yes.
so Easter is
Easter
it the ninth or the
is
next
the-
week?
Easter is,
It's like this.
It's the 10th through 14th?
yeah, I think it's the 16th, right?
Oh, okay,
And then
yeah.
Easter Monday, right, because the schools are closed the 17th also.
Oh, okay.
Notice our operating budget hearings, though, will be before that recess. And because of not getting it until March 15th, we're only gonna be able to have hearings on the 5th and the 6th.
Easter is the 16th.
So there'll only be 2 nights for operating budget hearings instead of 3.
Really?
Then-
Really?
Yeah, 2 nights and 2 afternoons.
We can't do
We
that.
can't do it because of the 21-day notice in the charter that's required, because when we get it on the 15th, then they're not agreeing to send it on the 14th. So we'll just do,
So they'll
we'll
get
do
one
2
here.
nights. We'll do 2 nights and 2 afternoons.
You start them earlier, you start them later, I mean, you go later, what do you do?
No, you basically have 4 hours.
Yeah, you plan, instead of limiting it to 30, we'll
Right.
go to 40 or
Right.
a few
I
more
think that makes
each night,
sense.
and then, yeah, and then in the
There's the
afternoons too.
afternoon.
Could we give people the, I like the idea of starting at 6 if we were to do something like that. And giving people the option of saying, if you wanna testify, would you be interested in the slots between 6 and 7? Because I think we'd be a lot fresher if we started that and listening to testimony, than if we're starting late. And if we gave people the opportunity, I don't wanna be in a situation where if you can't sign up for that slot, you don't get it, but there are people who could testify then.
Just
Mm-hmm.
They'd probably
remember,
be happy
you
to.
you will be having hearings all afternoon,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's your
still,
call.
yeah. Just give us a break at 5 o'clock for dinner or
Yeah.
something.
6 will be fine.
Yeah.
If that's
That does
something that
make
people
sense.
come
And
to.
But
that
then we might go
allows
to
a
10.
little bit more people you can
Yeah.
take up, since we have to do good planning.
Can I recommend that if we have students or young people that are gonna testify or children, then we try to get them at the beginning of
Good.
the evening hearing.
While we're on
Can
the
if we
topic.
know if they're students,
Yeah.
you know, they
So-
sign up online,
Right, so
and
people are,
so-
I mean, to the extent that we can identify, or maybe there can be an announcement made that if there are
Oh.
young people or children, we used to do that at Board of Education, because they have.
Yeah, we could incorporate something in the opening statement.
Well, not just the opening statement, but when you sign up, when you advertise.
Well,
Let's do that.
Ask if.
The issue there is that you convey the message that it's somehow
it's
Yeah.
desirable that you get your kid up to testify, which
Well-
we're happy to hear from them if they want to, but it's not like it's not like the testimony's any more compelling if it's from a kid. Yeah, while we're on that topic, I just would urge, sometimes it's hard, kids are cute. Don't laugh at kids. It's really, it evokes, something that's unexpected evokes laughter. It's an involuntary reflex, but don't laugh at witnesses, any of us. Don't laugh at kids.
So then we have the 3 weeks of council budget work sessions, and then the roughly 2 weeks of council work sessions with final action on the 25th, the standard 2-week recess coming back on,
When do we ratify contracts? Is that like?
May
the
1.
week of May 1?
so it has to be done by May 1.
So
On the
last week
council
of
will,
April.
yeah, the council will take it up on the, we'll have to take it up on the 25th of April. Right, and will go into committee, into GO the week before that. So that's really right after recess, that first week afterwards, the committee will be taking it up, and so the 27th, the 25th of April, unless it's extended, because there's the council, there's a provision where the council can agree to extend it by a couple of weeks. Okay, June, come back to council on the 12th. The week of July the 4th is a recess. That's the 3rd through the 7th. Last session for the summer will be July 25th. Then we have the August recess, coming back in September, on September 11th. And a couple of holidays in November, and then last session in December will be the 12th. If that's okay, we'll continue with things. Quickly, just to council appointments, I wanted to highlight for you in your packet here, you have the list of appointments for this coming year. Just, we've got to start thinking now, because we have 2 real openings. In other words, they're completing their second terms and aren't eligible for reappointment, one for the planning board and one for the Board of Appeals. The planning board, and for both of them, I believe, we can take anything, we're not limited. It can be Democrat, Republic, or open. Now, to the point, Jeff is here. The Air Park Liaison Committee expired, and it disbanded, it ended in July of this past year. And so there's a question to you about whether it should be reconstituted, and Jeff is here to answer your questions.
Did we get any communication from them seeking an extension?
Well, mostly it's Keith Miller who wants to keep them constituted, mainly because then he's got one body to deal with instead of 7 or 8 that are separate. So he's very much interested in keeping it. We have some personality situations with the committee, and it's been a long time since we went back to the civic associations that appoint these people to say, who are your representatives? Who do you want on it? As opposed to having retained this group since about 1992. So I think it's a good idea if you're willing to reappoint them, and then we would have to go out and then ask for volunteers. The chair of the committee, I think, has been particularly good at keeping calm and getting the avoiding rumors and getting out facts to the community. I would recommend him to be reappointed, but again, asking the communities to give us your names so that you can select it.
So what action do we need?
You would pass a resolution reconstituting and then appointing the new members, and then that if he gets the direction from here, then Jeff will start that process in seeking new volunteers for you guys to either bless or interview.
Is there any objection?
No, but how often do they meet, John?
They meet, when they have something to say, when there's some, when somebody wants a meeting. You know, we have gone about 14 months without a meeting, when there was no action, there were no events happening at the airport, one way or the other, there were no CIP items. But, you know, we could try to meet, once every 6 months or something like that, or at least once a year, but look, the group that's been there has been there for longer than I've been here. So, they know each other, they know the system and all that, and they don't feel a need to meet.
So, without objection, we will reconstitute.
We'll start and we'll have a resolution when we're ready. Okay, then, the other appointments there are listed. We'll have a Merit System Protection Board appointment coming up at the end of the year and BIT standard. But I just really wanna highlight you guys to beat the bushes on good candidates for both Board of Appeals and Planning Board. Actually, advertising for the Planning Board will start in February, so. Now, just here listed, we have 4 town hall meetings planned.
So is that Norm and Mary Wells, Harley?
Yes,
Both of them.
it's Mary Wells, Farley, and Carolyn Shawwaker from the
No, I
Board.
apologize. Norm Dreyfus isn't up yet?
No.
I'm sorry. Thank
He'll
you.
be up.
I was looking at the wrong, thank you.
Right.
So for the Board of Appeals, does this person, is there a political affiliation?
Yes, there is a requirement, and since Carolyn is a
Democrat,
Democrat, it could be a Democrat, or it could be a Republican, or an independent.
So
So it's
that's the requirement.
It
That's
doesn't
pretty
matter.
broad.
That's a pretty broad.
You breathe.
Has to be a representative.
Yeah. The town hall meetings, we have identified Long Branch, we've identified White Oak, the youth one in October, and then North Bethesda, White Flint, and the dates are there. Quarterly meetings with the Regional Service
Let
Center.
me just stop you there.
Yes.
At the time, I was concerned about our town hall meetings as to whether or not they were really working for us in terms of ensuring that we were listening to our citizens and getting good feedback, as well as how we do that. Because I am open to anybody's suggestions, now or later, as to how we should, if we should tweak the format with respect to those town hall meetings in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes I feel that they work, sometimes I feel they don't work. I don't know if there's anything more we can do at our end to create a, if you'll forgive the expression, a robust conversation that is meaningful. Craig?
So can I just say that when it comes to the youth town hall, which is incredibly successful.
Yes.
And is great, part of the challenge with the youth town hall is that because it is in Rockville, it oftentimes makes it more difficult for people who do have to go home. And so as we rotate the other town halls
Yes.
to specifically get to other parts of the county, having the youth town hall in Rockville isolates a lot of the people who aren't in that vicinity, because just from a timing aspect, still having to get home to do homework. So I would encourage us to be a little bit more flexible in that, think about other places we might have it,
Yeah.
not just having it at the county council building.
I'm open to that. It
Yeah,
doesn't
Yeah,
have to
so-
be
and it doesn't matter where, I mean, but as we rotate it, I think that'll be helpful.
rotate the other
in-
ones.
in getting to.
We can also
Would
do it
there-
earlier.
Yeah, would
Yeah.
there be any benefit to having a portion of every town hall be for youth? Because then that puts you in different
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
and you like it
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah.
Because then.
Because it won't be enough time.
Yeah, yeah.
As it is, there's never
It
enough
does
time.
not
Yeah.
enough time.
And even the
Invariably,
ones.
it is Board of Education related questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we try to
So
create
then that goes-
context, so
All right.
as hard as we try.
In response to your observation, I just said this past year, you never know what the engagement's gonna be, and I thought they were all, we heard from different people
Yes.
in different communities, and I think that's what's really important. I tried to make sure we weren't having the town hall we were having the town hall meetings in places where we weren't doing anything else,
Yes.
like public hearing wise, otherwise, so that, you know, we would hear from a different constituency that we haven't been able to reach out to quite the same way. You know, for us at-large people, it's a little different, because we don't usually have our own personal town hall meetings. Some of you have your own, so, I think it's important, but I think it's important for district people as well to be at these town hall meetings wherever they are, because the subject area, you know, is varies.
I thought that this past youth town hall meeting was a lot better than it had been the last couple of years, and I noticed that we had pretty good participation from, like, the Watkins Mill football team
Yeah.
guys.
Oh,
Remember
Oh,
those
yeah,
guys?
that's good.
That was amazing, but we also had, you know, folks coming up from Silver Spring, so, you know, it seemed like I was all set to say this thing isn't working, but then it kind of
It did.
like
Seemed to work out.
rejuvenated the whole thing for me. Just another thought is, you know, and I don't know quite how it balances out with our agendas, but sometimes topical town halls get a different audience, you know, because a general town hall, you kind of get driven by the people who show up at everything.
Yes.
And, you know, a topical town hall will pull people out who aren't just kind of always going to every meeting, so, I don't know, it's something to think about, you know, maybe it's too late for this year, I don't know. It's something to think about.
We can make this up the way we want to.
You know, like a town hall on gang violence, for example, you know, if that, or whatever, I'm just throwing out a current topic, sorry. You know, you would just get a different cross-section.
And totally open on the youth one, holding it someplace else, Germantown or any place.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, keep in mind, I mean, East County, I mean,
Right.
there are a whole bunch of, it's just, and knowing that so many, and as we talk about more involvement and understanding that a lot of our people do rely upon public transportation, although, you know, there's Ride-On Stop that's there in Rockville, it's right there, it's still not as convenient, for some folks, so making it more convenient as we have the opportunity to rotate from year to year, I think is something that a lot of parents and students
I
will
like that.
appreciate.
Would there be interest maybe for the youth town hall to have one up county, one down county each year? Because I think it seems to me like a long time for, you know, to wait for the next rotation. So if we had one, I don't know, in the spring up county, let's say, and in the fall down county.
Could we
You
split?
know,
I mean,
perhaps
is
that
there-
would be really cool.
Do we want to?
Could we split it in
It's
half
like,
and
it's
do
like,
it the same
because I
night?
feel like
No, you
the
can't.
youth town hall, you have such,
Yeah.
yeah, you have so much interest, you know, and you never have enough time.
Yeah.
And it's such a large county, I mean, you know, and, because I feel like the other town halls, you know, people who are very motivated will drive to them. We're trying to encourage youth participation. And so if we did it geographically, in a geographically accessible way, I mean, to have one in the spring and one in the fall is not that, I think, difficult, but we cover,
Like it? Anybody opposed?
Just a question of how many
How many
nights
evenings?
people can be up there.
So we'll take that under advisement. Linda, let's
Fine.
keep churning on that.
Okay, quarterly meetings with the regional service center directors, there occasionally are questions about having to meet with them 4 times. That was an agreement, you have it in your packet. And we're just curious, Roger wanted to throw it out, if you're interested in making a change to that.
Do we need
Instead
it
of
4
4
times a year,
times.
3 times a year, every 6 months?
I think it's interesting,
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
I think it's a good thing. What happened this year, though, is we had to reschedule something.
Because of
Yeah.
weather.
And consequently, we had one like 1 week, and then we had another one like, it
Yeah.
seemed
Yeah.
like
It
2
just
weeks
seems like,
later.
really, didn't we just meet with you guys?
So, I mean,
What happened yesterday?
if we could have that goal,
Yeah.
but understand, that it could be, you don't, if you just met with them, you don't have to do it again.
Right.
Like, within the
Right.
next month.
So then I have a goal here of these 4 months, we'll gear for it, if that's how you wanna keep it.
Yep, keep it.
Okay, we are to the office move. You wanna discuss the office move?
I think we need a report on where we stand.
Well, we're under construction. If you haven't done this already, number 4, on the 4th floor on the elevator, just take a look.
Or if you're taking the stairs, it's easier.
Or she's bragging.
The problem with the stairs, I tried to do that, and there's a big sign over that says
That's
construction.
that staircase.
Oh, the back one, yeah, the back
The
staircase.
windows open.
That's true. So you actually step out on the fourth floor if you want to. But I probably have somebody hold the door, because I don't think you can get back on. It's totally gutted, and they're beginning to put in, they're just now beginning to put in some of the conduit and some basic infrastructure stuff up there. If you remember, there are 3 phases of the project. The fourth floor is being done first, and it's supposed to be completed by May, end of May, and then at that point, the Public Information Office moves to their final location, OLO, Legislative Information Services, and the IT unit all move to their final locations on the fourth floor. The analysts and attorneys move down to temporary space on the fourth floor, so we'll be in Carroll's basically for many months. And then the next stage is on schedule. It's going to be finished by the end of May. It's still going to be finished at the end of May. However, when we put out the bids, or DGS put out the bids, they asked for the second phase to be finished by the second week of September. When they negotiated with NORESCO said we can't do it by then. And so they basically came back and said it could be done by early December. Yeah, sorry Nancy, everybody else. So it looks like the move from the 6th floor to the 5th floor will happen in December, right after the recess. It's possible that could get moved up a month. They're still working on the schedule. That's probably the worst case scenario at this stage. And now they're under construction, they pretty much know what they're doing. It's possible they could move in sometime in November, but that would really kind of rely upon Mr. President here. If he could figure out a way of maybe canceling meetings for like 1 week or part of a week at least, maybe just before Thanksgiving, if in fact they can move that quickly, it's possible we can move that. But we'll know better.
And tell me why that would be so important. I mean,
I don't know. It depends how quickly you want to get into your new space.
Why can't I mean, why is that
Why would
day?
they
1
think
week
for
or 2
meetings?
weeks,
We can
whatever
have
it is.
meetings elsewhere. I mean, we have council meetings and,
Well, you could do
Council's
that. It just, but the point is, if you have meetings, the staffs are busy and they're serving you, as opposed to actually getting your stuff on, and the furniture all moved down. So, just think about it. Right now, it's probably gonna be right after recess starts in December, but it could be possibly up to a month earlier, if they can work on the schedule. The 3rd stage is when the 6th floor is finished, and the analysts and attorneys that are now on the 4th floor will move to the 6th floor, and that's now looking like the May after recess in 2018, although that too possibly could get moved up to maybe just before the operating budget hearings, if they can work on the schedules. The second thing you should know is that there are some changes to the scope, in fact almost entirely having to do with the building as a whole, not with the renovation of the 6 floors. One of the things they found out is that the air-cooled HVAC system, which is what they wanted to use, initially the contractor showed it won't work because, frankly, because of the solar panels. The solar panels have taken up most of the roof where the air-cooled system would be. So instead they're going with a water-cooled system, which just costs about $1 million more. But it actually has advantages of the air-cooled system in that it allows more flexibility in terms of how the settings can be made within each floor. And it doesn't have to be the same climate control in the entire building. It can vary. There's some other changes as well. DGS was not willing to submit a CIP amendment as part of the executive's amendments that got sent over yesterday because they're still working on the numbers. Presumably they'll be setting, in fact, we're talking today. They're actually meeting right now as we speak internally about these costs. And they expect to send it over probably with the March amendments, the CIP. So we'll see where that goes there. That's basically it. Linda Price is sort of the day-to-day
picture schematic that you can share again with respect to what this is gonna look like.
Sure.
I, for one, forget.
Yeah, we have that.
What
If anybody
the
wants to
end
see them,
result's gonna
I'll ask
be.
Linda Price to bring them to you. Linda's the day-to-day person on this, but we have construction meetings with the whole team every week now, or every week or every other week, depending on the need. We had one this morning in the 3rd floor conference room.
Okay.
And show you exactly what's going on. We also have a concept now for the 1st floor auditorium. Basically, the tables will be torn out, be replaced with chairs, more or less the kind of chairs you have in the audience in the 3rd floor hearing room, which has the retractable desks, because that room is mostly used for training. OHR uses, there's a lot of training courses in there. And then, of course, the Civic Federation meets there, and some others. We only use it once a year. So it's really more for the public and for OHR. But it's really more of a training room, and so it's gonna actually be quite good. But the basic layout's gonna be the same. It's gonna slope down, and there'll still be a stage. But it'll be entirely.
Always have potential to be a real nice space.
Oh, yeah.
Seems like
Absolutely.
Such a wasted asset.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is there anything that's gonna get done on the elevators? I mean, every other week, we have one, we have none.
That's I don't know. Nothing in this project on the elevators, because remember the elevator replacement.
Is there anything that's in the maintenance on the elevators? I mean,
Well, it's distressing, because the elevators were just replaced like 2 or 3 years ago.
Warranties?
And so, I won't bring that up with DGS again, but it's.
I mean, 'cause I think we're down to one again today, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's part of the wellness program.
What did you say? What did you say?
Part of the wellness
Part of the wellness program.
Should be using it.
Yeah, that's right, all right. And I didn't know, other people told me that it wasn't working.
That's
Right.
what they told me.
That's the big lie.
Pass along the rumor I heard.
Do we get notification when the elevators are out? Steve knows why I'm asking this.
Right, we had a situation Friday afternoon that was unacceptable. Both elevators were out. And we do have someone on the 6th floor who has mobility issues, and that is an unacceptable situation. So I was in contact with the upper folks at DGS. Eventually it was resolved and we were able to get the person out, but without help with the elevators. So Lisa Friday had suggested helpfully that we make sure to let everybody know that if they had mobility issues, they should contact us. And we will have, when the elevators are out, it's Marianne Paradise who ordinarily coordinates that. She happened to be out sick last week. But we will make sure that everybody knows whether the elevators are functioning or not. What happened Friday, I don't recall ever having happened before with both of them out. But as you said, Sydney, often one of them is out. And that's not the exception, it's almost the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanted to talk a little bit about evening public hearings for
oh,
council
only because
or
we've gone
committee?
back and forth with
Yeah.
respect to this issue, is whether it's committee or full council.
I think we should go back.
To committee, maybe?
Yeah, it's an option. I mean, the committee chair and the council president ought to make that call. I know, that was my view, and then I know that the council president in between had a different view, but I think we ought to maintain the flexibility.
Other views, I think most of our staff feel strongly that we do the public a disservice by only having a couple of members there for public hearings. And sometimes you have a full committee meeting and maybe one of the committee members that can't be there, so you have 50 people showing up to provide testimony and you only have 2 members of the council present. So I just shared that with you as a consideration as to how it reflects on us as an institution and whether or not we're present. Mr. Hunter?
I suggest you have to choose which is a greater disservice to the public. I mean, I think both with the town hall meetings and especially the evening hearings, the more frequent they are, certainly in your district, certainly in my district, there's a 50-person meeting I could be at every single night. And multiple times this year, there have been evening hearings where I'm coming in on something that's not in front of my committee, it's not all that controversial, we're having an evening hearing, it's gonna go for a while, and I'm missing a much more relevant and significant large event in my own district.
Well, on our evening public hearings, we really try to make sure that those are our larger conversations. So
That's
at least that's my sense of what we've tried to do in the past.
And if something unexpected happens and it's only a few, we postpone to the following week, so we don't come for just a small amount of people.
Well, this is just a definition. I mean, we have evening hearings that, you know, there might be 30 people at, there might be 40 people at, and when that competes with an event or multiple events in your district that are larger, that's a real conflict. And multiple times this year, I felt like I'm leaving Silver Spring, Stone Park, and other places behind. Issues that I'm very involved in, and had a bad impression sent by just sending staff, and heard from people that I must not care too much. and try to tell people, nope, I'm required to be at a hearing on this topic that isn't really a Silver Spring topic in Rockville.
Okay. Nancy?
Well, I'll just say, I've always taken the view that I think if it's something I'm gonna have to vote on, I need to know something about it, even if I'm not in the committee. And the evening hearings are the big, whatever it is, it's important enough that 30+ people have showed, made the effort to show up. But I will point out
But
though
they're
that
okay.
nobody is required to go. I mean, nobody has to be there. And it's a personal choice as to whether you're gonna make that time. But I have always said to people, I can't commit to anything on a Tuesday night, period. That's council day. So maybe I can make it, maybe I can't, but just tell them in advance, they understand that.
And Linda and I had
People
a
who were
conversation,
scheduled.
because once upon a time we were scheduling Tuesday and Thursday, and
was too much.
I asked Linda, I said, no, we will only do this on Tuesdays. Craig?
So when we had done it before, I think that there was, and it's kind of what we talked about, that flexibility in terms of making sure that people understand that it's not necessarily a requirement that you have to be there, which would help to alleviate some of the challenges. I mean, I just bring up the example of one of our town halls that's actually scheduled on the same night as I have one of my education budget forums on March 15th. So I won't be able to be there at that town hall on the 15th. We had already pre-scheduled our, but those are the kinds of things where it's
We can reschedule that. We got
Well,
time.
well, I don't want it to be rescheduled just because of me. Let me just be very clear about that. But I think that oftentimes when there are a lot of topics that we also have some sort of, where we really want to also weigh in and get some information from folks directly instead of just reading about it, we go to the public hearings. I know I've gone, and I know many other people have gone to public hearings where it was just committee, but people showed up. And I've been to public hearings where it's been the entire council that showed up, even though it was just a committee. So I think that we're all kind of saying the same thing. I mean, if there's that explicit, hey, there's flexibility, if you can't be there, you can't be there, and we understand that, versus normally with our public hearings, what it's seen as is it's a requirement that you're there. And if there's that, understanding that sometimes we're not gonna be able to make it, because there is something else that's pressing in the community, a big community event or something like that, and we can't make it, then I think that alleviates the problem.
And I know that Nancy did it, and I know that George did it that way. The people have conflicts, the council president announces, Councilmember Hunter had another important meeting, and then blah, blah, blah. So why don't we try and keep it flexible in that manner, and so that people understand that it's obviously desirous to be there. It's not mandatory. It's not mandatory that we show up on Tuesday during council day. It's not mandatory. It's this is our work, and if you can make it, you can make it. If you can't make it, you can't. So let's move on then.
I have a related caveat to this.
Yes, sir.
It would be good if we could, and I know it'll never be perfect and we're not in control of this relationship, but it would be good if we could have better coordination with the executive branch on this matter. For example, I know we can talk about this all day, and I don't want to.
That part is we agree with.
And I don't want to, but, for example, at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, visibility was in the paper every day. The county executive decided to call the first of 2 different meetings at the Silver Spring Civic Building, and I was in my car heading to Rockville when I got a text from my staff saying there were 700 involved constituents at the Civic Building. So I turned around, I went to the Civic Building, and Mark was there too, and the rest of you were up doing your duty in Rockville, and I had to miss that, and the executive branch certainly knew that we have hearings on Tuesday.
That was deliberate, Tom.
I didn't want to say that, but anyway, it would be nice.
Indifferent is probably.
If we could inveigh upon the executive not to do those type of events when they're in direct, predictable conflict with council business.
Or groundbreaking.
Again, we will tell them again that that's something we've dealt with for years and years and years, and we'll
Maybe we should pass a resolution, maybe we should pass a resolution on Tuesday morning.
No, they've actually scheduled press conferences in my district
Yes,
on
they do it
Tuesday
anytime.
at 10 o'clock.
In all of
Something
them.
that I was intimately involved with. Really? Okay, so we all have those frustrations.
Can I tell a quick anecdote about this? This goes back, it's not just this county executive, because all of them. When Doug was county executive, and I think this was like the late nineties, Gary Bowman, he always had groundbreakings, which you remember, on Tuesdays. And he did groundbreaking for the opening of, groundbreaking for the 198/28 connector. And he'd scheduled for late in the morning. And the council decided, just privately talking amongst yourselves, let's end this council meeting early. And you all showed up. Actually, it wasn't any of you, it was Barry. And he was sort of nonplussed that everybody was there. But, it was funny.
I think I remember that, that's.
It
might
was
have
2000,
just when I
it was early, it was 2003,
Yeah,
it
might
was
have
very
been
early.
early.
Proclamations, everybody wants to keep them tight, and we try, and sometimes they are a little loose, but hopefully all of us will appreciate it. The tighter the better.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for Black History Month?
Do we have a plan, Cindy?
Not that I know of, but I kind of assumed, since it was done last year, that it would be done again.
You have a different
We didn't
way,
do it last- we didn't do it last
thought as to
year.
how to do it?
Well, last year, we had an event which was related to the rolling out of the park and planning website of historic sites. So, I'll be happy
You did
to
that.
pursue it.
Okay.
Yeah, we,
Yeah.
Delighted to have thoughts as to how to do it better or otherwise.
Yeah, I'll share some thoughts.
Good.
Yeah, and from my office's perspective, we prefer to do something earlier rather than later, in the month, and so that's
So
why.
that is what month are we, I apologize, it's not.
So it's a couple weeks.
Okay. Well, we sort of have a light
Patty and Steve
agenda
did.
on the first one in February.
It's gotten heavier.
Heavier,
How
right.
about the second week?
Okay, does that seem right? Second week in February?
Second week in February.
Are we good? Second week in February?
Great.
Okay, so
Proclamations
let's have-
generally,
We'll work.
Yeah, proclamations generally?
I think there was a time when we kind of agreed to a protocol.
There was. That's why it
Which has
says
been-
protocol for.
It does not say agreement, it does not say agreement.
Doesn't say binding.
I don't have that strong a feeling, but it was very hard for us to manage last year. Because I think we sort of said two,
Yep.
and one speaker for each group, and maybe one proclamation, and that part is less important, but when you bring up a big crowd of people, and then you invite everyone to speak, which they like, it does take up a lot of time, and it was not what we had agreed to, so I'm just throwing that out there, I don't, some people, and I don't know if anyone else cares about it, I'm just saying it was hard for us to try to know how long things were gonna go.
So I just ask everybody, if you're doing a proclamation, have a conversation with the people that you're giving the proclamation on behalf of, and just try and keep it as tight as we can. I mean, I thought the one for Korean Day the other day was sort of weird, the way that played out, but they all play out a little differently, and, yes, sir.
And I think we're doing better, and I certainly am probably as guilty as anyone else, but during the proclamations, we do have a tendency to laugh and joke and to have other discussions, and the people who are literally standing right in front of us hear every word, and sometimes that's very disrespectful of them, so I just remind people that this is not, and as I say, I'm as guilty as anybody else, but just remind people, please don't do that.
Yeah, and beware that we're on television, and it is disrespectful to be talking among ourselves, really, when people are getting something that's we consider to be pretty important to them. All right?
Last item is if you want to go into closed session to discuss security.
Before that, just one last piece, this is under miscellaneous.
Yeah,
I'm just curious about, I know the cafeteria had some issues, and I've been packing my food.
I think we got a 9-0 vote here. I feel this council coming together.
And also that that's under safety, but anyway.
It does go under safety too, but, I feel like, we're in the middle of session and everything, meetings and whatever, you don't have that much time to grab food, you're rushing, et cetera. It would be nice,
If there was food there?
A, if there was food, and B, if there wasn't food that came from places that had violations
Yeah.
for, you know, all kinds of things. I mean, you know, I take an issue with that, and my staff, I mean, it's also not fair for the staff, if everybody relies on that cafeteria. I mean, we should have something a bit more decent.
I try to go down there every night at 1:30 or so, you go down there.
There's nothing.
There's no food.
There's nothing at 12:30.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So do we have a copy of the contract? Can we ask DICE for a copy of the contract? What are the requirements? What
Talk
is
to
this,
us,
what are
guys.
the terms for
But
discharging?
what is
them?
our role in this? What's our ability to control our own food? I don't know.
Call DICE.
I'm not trying to be Yertle the Turtle here and king of all we can see, but I mean, this is our food,
No, but it
our
really is.
cafeteria.
I mean, now, we know we have had a health and safety issue,
Yeah.
it's documented. And that alone should be terms for discharging them. I don't know what's in this contract, but it should be. And number two, I have my own, preferences and gripes that I won't raise, but yeah, it's a productivity issue for my staff that I want to speak up for. If they, you know, I'm sending them downstairs, they have work to do, I'm only free for, you know, half an hour, something, they wanna meet with me, they need to get food quickly, and there's no food there, and they have to go walk 10 minutes and 10 minutes back, that's a giant waste of time. And to me, these people are here to provide food for the people in the council building, and the excuse they give is, well, the food's all gone. If it's not in their contract, they have to serve food when we're in session, when we're during working hours till 5 p.m., it should be. And we ought to find another vendor if it's not.
Steve, what is, can you
Yeah,
enlighten us?
This is an acute problem, it's also a chronic one. We've had this go way back, for example, in the early days of the Duncan administration. And Bruce Romer reminded us that he, as chief administrative officer, was responsible for oversight of both cafeterias. I think Glenn is right, we should get together with David Dice and simply raise on
Invite him to lunch.
on his.
Invite him to lunch.
No, we like him, but we should get together with David Dice, and unfortunately, DGS does have a whole raft of issues. Like, for example, the elevator issues that they are.
Can you imagine us
that they are
having our
grappling
own
with.
contracting authority for this?
I'm sorry?
Can you imagine a context in which we have independent contracting authority?
That shouldn't be
for-
necessary. That
Or
shouldn't be
that we
necessary.
should-
How would
I
we,
mean-
we'd have to set up our own procurement mechanism, it's not that simple. We ought to be able to structure a contract for the council office building that works for the council.
It's not just for the council, it's not even just for the county office building, it's for anybody who goes there, including the public.
Yes.
A lot of folks from the district court come over there.
Poor people.
Well, that's
City
the
Rockville.
issue, but that's why the food runs.
That's why the
So the
food
question is,
runs.
how do you structure, I mean, you have to figure out the economics of it. So how does she refresh the food after an hour so that it doesn't all run out by 12:30? I mean, it's not that complicated. It just needs to.
They're required to have food.
Hey, food. Okay, whatever, you hear us, this is not, this is not satisfying.
Since we're discussing it, well, I mean, no, the hours are negotiated. Lunch, they don't serve lunch after 2:30. So that may not work. Someone may not bid on that contract because nobody's eating lunch at 3 o'clock. Your staff may be, but that's not gonna be enough to keep a full buffet up and running at 3 o'clock. You gotta think about the economics of it. You can't provide full food all day because people don't eat
You
full
can have
food.
other food out, they have no.
Well, but it also gets to the point that when they have no food out, they have one short order cook. And the line is very long and you can't stand it. So there has to be some additional, if something happens, and there's days that things happen. If something happens, they have to be able to serve quickly.
Can I just?
So, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, just really quickly, it's interesting that when we had our prior contract, we didn't have as many issues as we do now.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I think is interesting, because it was the executive side that insisted that the folks that were over there come over to the council building, and that's when a lot of the issues that we started to see started to arise. All the things from staffing issues and having multiple people, the lines weren't the same when it came to making sure that they met the needs. They knew what the needs of the building were, and so adjusted accordingly. And so I think that this management entity is very focused on the other side of the street and isn't focused on the needs of this particular building. And I'm saying this, but our council building. And so from that perspective, I think that's where there was a loss really in terms of the true quality of service that everybody's looking for.
I guess I'm alone on this, but I think they are so much better than the last contract.
I think the food is tastier.
I think the food is healthier,
Yeah.
there are more healthy choices, and the service is just the same. I don't know the details of that health issue, I need to get briefed on that.
Don't
I think
read it.
that they are.
We don't wanna read it.
Well, I guess I don't know, I mean, I should know, but I think the food is, I think they are way better than the last contract was.
I think it's a
Well, I mean,
I guess it
speaking
depends
from that
on what you
perspective,
eat.
I've read a lot of restaurant health reports, and they'll all scare you and upset you. I mean, there's no health violation that you would think was appetizing. But health violations do get corrected in restaurants everywhere all over the county, and the restaurants still operate, and you all still eat in them. If you look, there's many restaurants that you patronize regularly have had health violations, I assure you.
And you pay a hefty price for the dinner. I mean, you know, these things happen, but it doesn't mean that they should happen.
All right, let's keep going, gang. We have open floor now. One of the issues that I wanted to raise is what happens with petitions when they are filed with the council? Because my understanding is that we never respond to the people who filed the petition or anybody who signed the petition. And that just feels off to me. So I just share with my colleagues, and it doesn't get put in the system. It operates sort of separate and apart from the system. Now, one person writes a letter, we respond. If a petition's filed by 100 people,
Or 1,200
or 1,200, we don't respond.
What does that mean, file, is that a thing? Is that-
Yeah, a petition, when Linda comes, a petition has been
We've
filed.
we've been very broad in what if they call it a petition, this isn't like it's filing a petition to get a question on the ballot. If somebody calls it a petition, we say, okay, it's a petition. If a bunch of people sign the same letter, okay, it's a petition. We're very broad on what that is. And the way it's acknowledged is before you guys, we acknowledge it at session, and we don't have.
We don't send a letter back saying, thank you for filing a
Well, a
petition.
lot of them don't have addresses on them. They just sign them, but there's no way to get in touch with them.
Right.
But sometimes they do.
But sometimes they do.
But most
So I don't
ones I've
think we
seen,
just,
they
don't. I mean,
or
that's-
at least the person that files it, somebody has an address.
Yeah. Let me look into it.
Look into it.
I think a solution could be, I don't know if they are answering to the main person that submits it, but I get your drift. You'd like to have it, if there's a bunch of signatures and addresses, why can't we send note cards or whatever,
Right.
emails or whatever it is, just to make sure they know that we know they signed this petition.
Right,
Is that
and then here's the council's position with respect to the issue, like we respond to everybody who's
Yeah.
files with us.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of tradition with this or rules or anything like that, so
Yeah.
it's really whatever you want.
I just find it odd.
Well,
I'm actually not on this topic, if I could be called.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to an earlier topic. Yeah.
On this topic?
well, on this,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if everyone has this information. For some of the petitions, like if you can tell that it comes in from like change.org,
Yeah.
where they just printed it out, what I'll do is I'll find the petition page online, ask them to be added as a decision maker, and then we'll send a letter from Tom to everyone who signed the petition. I don't know if everyone is aware of that functionality, but it's very helpful because then you are responding to all the constituents,
Yes,
even though you don't get their contact information.
so.
so you can do that through the website?
Through change.
If you know
Change.
it, because
Or
I was gonna raise that issue because periodically something happens that more or less shuts down our system. When we'll get like 200 emails or something about some issue, and we don't have a great way of dealing with it. I'm not even sure we respond at all, do we? I mean, sometimes you can tell it's one of those things, but sometimes you can't.
Right.
And they're all saying, everyone's saying, the same thing, it's clearly a computer-generated communique.
And sometimes they're not even from here. I mean, we've gotten stuff from California or whatever on these, on the ones you're talking about.
Yeah,
Nancy.
we've gotten them from Australia.
Yeah.
But couldn't we just send out an acknowledgement to the person that actually brings the petition to us? Because if you have 2,000 people that sign a petition, you're spending $1,000 to send them each one saying, thank you very much for signing this petition. But if you just had an acknowledgement that said to the person that brought it, thank you very much, we have received it, it was presented on X, whatever day it was, during the council meeting, and if there's any further questions, whatever. But otherwise, to send it back to each one, yeah, that's an awful lot of work.
I look for something that's a little more responsive
So
and come up
we'll
with some
let you take
options
care
for
of
us.
that, Roger.
Okay? Any other open floor items, Theo? Yes.
Going back to the issue of the cafeteria, I don't think it would be David Dyson, wouldn't it be Sheree Branson who we would have to talk to?
I think it's.
No, DGS is in charge of the cafeteria, and.
Of soliciting vendors and responding to bids
No, I
from
mean,
vendors?
well, there would have to be another, you're right, there would have to be another procurement. But DGS is in charge of management of the cafeterias.
Of the existing contract?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So what is gonna happen on that matter?
Well, Glenn and I will meet with David Dice, lay out the issues in case he's not aware of them, and see what solutions we can come up with.
Why don't you let us know?
And we'll let everybody know.
Some of my,
Of course.
why don't you let us
Ahead
know
of
when you
time.
meet with them, when you're gonna meet with them, because maybe some of my colleagues will find it important enough to weigh in or send staff to reinforce, okay?
And it won't be for lunch.
It won't be for lunch, okay? State ledger agendas, the question arose as to when we get those agendas and whether we get enough information in advance, I believe was the concern. So if you could talk with Mel with respect to that and make sure that we get them in time to really know what we are gonna be dealing with. Tom?
And what information in particular we get. I mean, it came up last year. It's certainly helpful as a sort of shorthand ability to judge what a bill does and who supports it, to know who the co-sponsors are, certainly the ones from Montgomery County, right? So we're sort of supporting people that we're aligned with or representing the same district. It came up last year. It's nice to know which third-party groups are supporting or opposing certain legislation. We usually don't know that. And very often, we're asked to take positions far in advance of a time when we would need to take positions, just because I think it's convenient for our Annapolis staff, but it's weeks and weeks ahead of a hearing in Annapolis would be, I think, more advantageous for us to know, to have the full picture of who's co-sponsoring a bill, sponsoring a bill, and which groups are on which side of the issue, so we don't make mistakes.
Mr. Rice?
So, along those same lines, this is exactly the same conversation we just had this morning at MACO, because oftentimes when legislative staff brings MACO bills that we have to, then as a legislative committee, vote on, it's just seeing it right then and there, not having any background, all the same concerns. And so part of the conversation was about, from an electronic format, making sure that that information is out ahead of time, so that folks, and with the links, so you can link to the bill, you can click on the link, so instead of the printed copies that we get, that are great, on Fridays in our Friday packets, the reality is that an electronic format for something like this, where we have the links, and so if that's something we could communicate to Mel, so that we could get those, automatic links to those bills, it gives a lot of the background information. It's not gonna give us everything that you're asking for, but at least it'll give us some of the stuff that we need to really try and make a more informed decision. And then if Mel can supplant that with some of that information, I think that'll give us a more robust piece of the pie when it comes to really making some good decisions.
Okay, so I'll obviously see her on Friday, and I'll convey the desires of the body with respect to how to do this as well.
Roger, just one reminder that I sent this to confidential aides, but if there's any bill or topic you want on the state ledge agenda for the following week, just try to get it to me.
When is our next meeting?
Wednesdays, and then I'll get that to Mel.
When is the next state ledge meeting?
Monday.
This coming Monday is the
I'd like
first
to know
one.
SB1.
SB1.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else, guys? Open floor?
So under the category of communication and civic education, I've been implementing this Latino Civic Project in my district. We've had Title I schools, just plain basic civic education. And so there's been a lot of interest in other areas of the county. And because we have very limited resources, I've decided to include the workshops through our Diadoménica show, which is the last Friday of each month. so that it could be then broadcasted throughout the county, and then people can at least get the basics. But in addition to that, you know, something that I offer is that it may be a good idea for Suzanne Kennedy, for example, to have a couple of programs, you know, in English, because we assume that everybody knows, you know, who is the county council, what do we do, how do you come and testify, and actually, it's not the case. So even though, you know, the Latino Civic Project is for folks who are not very familiar, et cetera, I time and time again find people that are like, I would like to have this information. So anyway, something that I offer also maybe as a suggestion for us to have a couple of programs, Civic 101 in English, but just wanted to let you know and let you guys committee constituents know to listen to Roya America the last Friday of each month. Bertha, Maida, and Amy at Mass will be the ones who will be basically presenting these workshops in radio format.
Good, thanks.
Great.
Speaking of, do we have translation services to everybody's satisfaction now? Do we have that process when people come and testify? Is that piece working now? 'Cause
I think it's been pretty good with the subtitles. I mean, I think Neil is supposed to make sure and work on, you know, some, you know, we had some glitches, but I think that lately.
I think the system is working well. I think Neil and Delphine and Sonia have done an excellent job of finding the right contractor. We have someone at 51 Monroe who, with very little notice, can produce translation assistance and interpretation assistance in multiple languages. So I think that's under good control.
All right, do we want to have a conversation about security?
I do very, I don't know how in-depth we need, but I would like.
Okay, so do we need a
We
motion
need
to
a
go
motion
into
to
closed
get
session?
Also move.
Second.
Let's clarify just before we go, what
To
we're
discuss
discussing
public
are
security.
measures to protect the council office building.
Yes, the
Right.
topic
Just
is
so we're
building
clear.
security.
Yeah, no, and that's very clear.
Right.
Yes, the motion is to discuss public security pursuant to Maryland Code General Provisions, Article 305B10. Topic is building security.
Do we have a motion?
That's
What I
what
mean.
Mr. Katz was.
Second, second by Mr. Rice, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Okay. And that's our last item for the day.
Excuse me.
Great. Yes.